We just got two new Hall of Famers, so let's talk about it. Welcome back to Good Sports for You, where we are talking about good sports for you. And today we have two new players entering the pantheon of the baseball mythos, and that is Carlos Beltrán and Andruw Jones. But before we hop into all the results, I want to remind you to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate it so much. So the first guy that we are going to talk about is going to be Carlos Beltrán. And don't worry, we're going to go over every single player that was on the ballot, looking at their vote totals, see how they compare to last year, and what their outlooks are looking like for the future. So the first guy, though, that we got to talk about is Carlos Beltrán. Like I said, he received the most votes with 358 votes, and that's 84.2%. You need 75% to get in and to stay above 5% to stay on the ballot in the future. This was a huge jump for Carlos Beltrán. Last season, he only had 70.3, so it was basically assumed that he was going to get in. But around a 14% jump is absolutely incredible. This just kind of exemplifies how weak of a ballot this was. The fact that our first guy was able to jump that much. His first season that he was on the ballot, 46.5. 57.1 the next season, then 70.3, and then, like I said, this year, 84.2. Carlos Beltrán was 100% deserving to get into the Hall of Fame. He had 70 career WAR, baseball reference WAR. As a switch hitter, he had 2,725 hits, 435 home runs, 312 stolen bases. He was a power threat. He was a stolen base threat, 3-time Gold Glover, 2-time Silver Slugger, 9-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year, 119 OPS plus. By the numbers, undoubtedly a Hall of Famer. The only concerns, the only issues were the 2017 Astros cheating scandal, which it was alleged that he was the big guy in. Whether that he was scapegoated into that, which is kind of what I believe, honestly, if I'm being real, or if he really was the ringleader. That definitely had major implications, I think, on his voting in the past. But it seems that voters have basically said, this is how we feel about the Astros cheating scandal, and that we're not really going to affect the players individually too much compared to the PED scandal and everything like that. So I think that this bodes very well in the future for other Astros that were on that team. Jose Altuve is the first one that comes to mind. Alex Bregman, I think, will be another one. Carlos Correa, if he can get up there, I think he's got a little bit longer to go, but Jose Altuve, a lot of people are talking about if he's going to be a Hall of Famer, and I think that he's going to be the next one that we're really going to be talking about, that 2017 scandal, especially because that's when he won his MVP. But Carlos Beltrán, 100% deserving. Even with the cheating scandal, I think he 100% deserved to get in. So I think that the writers really got it right with Carlos Beltrán. Congratulations, Carlos Beltrán, on entering the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. The next guy that we need to talk about is going to be Andruw Jones, coming in at 78.4%. He is the only other person to get into the Hall of Fame. He came in his very first time on the ballot with 7.3, then 7.5, then 19.4, then 33.9, then 41.4, then 58.1, then 61.6, then 66.2, and then obviously this year he got in with a total of 78.4%. This is fantastic news also for Andruw Jones. I don't know how he wasn't in. He's a 10-time Gold Glover. He's one of the best defensive, if not the best defensive center fielder of all time. In addition, he has over 400 home runs. The biggest knock against him is that he has under 2,000 hits, and he basically didn't do anything after his age 30 season. I mean, he had a career 62.7 WAR. Only 1.7 of that came after his age 30 season. He just wasn't a productive player after that. One of the biggest fall-offs in baseball history, after he finished second in MVP voting, hitting 51 home runs with 6.7 WAR. Then the season after that, 5.6 WAR. Season after that, 3 WAR. And then negative 1.6, 0.1, 1.9, 0.9, 0.2. But I think he was 100% deserving to get in. He did have some issues with off-the-court stuff. He had some court stuff that he had to deal with, and that definitely, I think, played a part in his voting and how much of support that he got. But when you're looking at the numbers, he is 100% deserving. There is a character clause in the Hall of Fame, so that definitely plays a part for some people. But for Andruw Jones, it looks like he was able to overcome that, whether you think that is a good thing or not. He was able to get into Cooperstown, and he will be enshrined in baseball immortality. Just looking at the pure numbers, I think he is 100% deserving to get in. I think, honestly, this bodes really well for a guy like a Bobby Abreu in the future, who started off extremely slow in his Hall of Fame candidacy. So I think that this is a good move for a lot of people on the ballot, considering this was a weak ballot. Next season's also going to be a weak ballot. So congratulations to Andruw Jones on making it into Cooperstown. So those are the two guys that made it in. Those are the main guys that I wanted to talk about. I think both of them, by the numbers, were very deserving. Both of them had some controversies with them, but they were able to get in. Carlos Beltrán on his 4th year on the ballot, and Andruw Jones on his 9th year on the ballot. In case you didn't notice, there were no first ballot Hall of Famers, but we will get to that a little bit later, but that is big news coming out of Cooperstown for sure. The next guy who finished with the next highest percentage of votes was Chase Utley. He had a huge jump. He jumped up to a remarkable 59.1% on his 3rd ballot, which basically signals that he is going to get in. I mean, Andruw Jones was kind of a questionable if he was going to get in this year, but if he had a big jump, it was kind of assumed that he was going to get in. Same thing with Chase Utley. Some people thought there could have been an outside chance because of how weak this ballot was, but he was only sitting at 39.8%, about a 10% jump from his 28.8%, so I'm just an 11% jump. But he had an even bigger jump this year. He had roughly a 20% jump. Like I said, jumping up from 39.8 to 59.1, a 20-point jump. Absolutely huge. This basically signs that he is going to get into the Hall of Fame, whether that's going to be next year or the year after that. Yeah, just wrap it up. I mean, you're looking at this next year's ballot, and it is considerably weak. We got Buster Posey. Buster Posey will probably get in, and then John Lester is the next one that really has a chance. But aside from that, it's a very weak ballot. So Chase Utley is going to have a huge chance to jump, and he's going to need to do that. He's going to need to have a really strong case before the 2028 ballot, because that's where you got Albert Pujols. But you're looking at that. You like the move for Chase Utley. He will get into the Hall of Fame at some point. I think he's 100% deserving, one of the best second basemen of all time, at a position that is historically underrepresented. If you look at WAR, he deserves to be in. If you look at the offensive numbers, he deserves to be in. A 117 OPS plus from the second base position, really deserves it. 6-time All-Star, 4-time Silver Slugger, World Series champion. Just overall, a very complete, very good player that's deserving to get into the Hall of Fame. I mean, you look at like his 5-year peak, it can go toe-to-toe with anyone. He was averaging 7.9 WAR a season across 5 seasons. That alone is going to get you into the Hall of Fame, quite frankly. The only concerns with him is he's under 300 home runs and he's under 2,000 hits, 2 benchmarks that you kind of want to get if you want to have a really, really solid chance to get into the Hall of Fame, but I do strongly believe that he will get in. The next guy that we need to talk about is Andy Pettitte, another returner. This was his 8th year on the ballot, and he had a very solid showing for a guy that has connections to PEDs. He put up with a 48.5% of the ballot on his 8th year on the ballot. Now, that may not sound like a lot considering that it's his 8th year, but this is a huge jump for him. Last season, he only had 27.9% of support. So almost a 20% jump for Andy Pettitte. Again, a guy that's been linked to PEDs. I believe that he admitted to using them, but he was never suspended. He was kind of in that time that it was the Wild West, so he garnered more support than some of the other guys that we're going to get to a little bit down on the ballot. But you definitely had a lot of people whose opinions flipped, and that's how he was able to get up to that over 20% of an increase, just under 50% of the total vote. I don't think that he's going to get in. He would need a remarkable jump next season to get in, and then a remarkable jump in the season after that. When you're just looking at the career stats as a whole, I mean, he's a 117 ERA plus, which, as somebody pointed out in my last video, is the same ERA plus or OPS plus as Chase Utley. My only argument to that, though, is there's a difference between starting pitchers and second basemen. Second basemen need to do a lot more defense and are relied for upon that, whereas pitchers, you're just pitching. That's really your only job. That's really your only value. And I mean, he has a career ERA just under 4 at 3.85. What I will say is he is one of the best playoff pitchers of all time, so that should get him some credit. But this is a remarkable jump for him, and we'll see if he's able to keep that up. I doubt that he is, but huge jump for him. The first guy that we have that's been linked to PEDs. Next guy that we got to talk about is Felix Hernandez. he also had a major jump. You are going to find that this is a pretty consistent trend with these players, is that they had a big jump up from the last time. Last time, he got 20.6% of votes. This time, he was sitting at 46.1, a 26% jump for King Felix. Peak, he can go toe-to-toe with anyone. I mean, he finished second in the Cy Young, and then he won the Cy Young in just a remarkable 2010 season. He wasn't even an all-star that season. And you want to talk about all-stars. How different would people be talking about him if he was a 7-time all-star versus a 6-time all-star? Does it make that much of a difference? I don't know. I honestly think that it does. So I think he kind of obviously got robbed of an all-star appearance there. But the thing is with him, similar to Andruw Jones, but even more to an extent, he fell off so hard after his age 30 season, and quite frankly, after his age 29 season. After the age of 29, he had a 1.3 WAR, he had a 0.7 WAR, then a negative 1.3 and a negative 0.8. If you take out those last 2 seasons, he's sitting comfortably above 50 WAR at like 51.9, and honestly, that makes a huge difference. ERA plus, it's the same as Andy Pettitte, but the difference between him and Andy Pettitte is Pettitte was much more of a compiler compared to Felix Hernandez, who can just peak, go toe-to-toe with, quite frankly, anyone. I mean, his strikeout numbers are pretty ridiculous for pitching in the amount of time that he pitched in. I mean, his per season average, or per 162 average, is 205. That's pretty remarkable. His peak was, like I said, as good as anyone, and it looks like writers decided to reward him with a huge boost in the voting this season. So honestly, something that I didn't believe was possible. I don't view him as a Hall of Famer, but if he can get in, that's great. I'm not a small Hall guy at all. In fact, I prefer if some more people can get into the Hall of Fame. So I am pro getting Felix Hernandez into the Hall of Fame, but I just don't believe that he is a Hall of Famer. If you catch my drift, if that makes any sense, I don't know if it does. And I didn't believe that his case had any legs to stand on before this voting, but after this voting, he had an absolutely huge jump. Next guy who I don't think has any legs to stand on is Alex Rodriguez. He came in at exactly 40% in his 5th season on the ballot. If you want to look at the numbers, obviously as a Hall of Famer. I'm not going to argue with that with anyone. And people can say what they want about how PEDs don't change how you hit a ball. Yes, they do, because if you're taking something that's making you stronger, when you hit the ball, it's going to be hit harder and it's going to be hit farther. More hits that are hit hard and hit farther are going to land for hits. That's making your batting average go up. And then if your batting average is better and your slugging is better, then pitchers aren't going to want to pitch to you. So then they pitch around you, which leads to your on-base percentage being higher. So if you want to say steroids don't help your eye, yes, they do, 100%. I'm not going to argue it with anyone. That's just the truth of the matter. And when you got a guy like Alex Rodriguez, who not only was he suspected of PEDs and everything like that, he was suspended. He was doing it at a time, and he got suspended in 2013, going into 2014. You know you shouldn't have been doing anything then. He got suspended like at that time. Come on. It's like Ryan Braun getting suspended. What are you doing at that point? Like other guys, like a Barry Bonds, like a Roger Clemens, it was the Wild West. You know, people could really do what they want, and baseball is profiting off of it with no repercussions. Alex Rodriguez, that's not the case. He got suspended. He shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion, because he knew what he was doing was cheating. It's the exact same thing with Pete Rose. He was cheating when he knew it shouldn't have been, when he shouldn't have been doing it. And writers, it seems, feel the same way. His first season, he got 34.3, then 35.7, then 34.8, then 37.1, and now 40%. He's bouncing a little bit up and down. He was a little bit up this season, but I'm sure as we get more clean players on the ballot, he's going to go down. Are his numbers deserving to get in the Hall of Fame? Yes, absolutely. But with everything included, he's not going to get into the Hall of Fame. If Barry Bonds wasn't able to get into the Hall of Fame, Alex Rodriguez isn't going to be able to get into the Hall of Fame, especially with the writers that we have right now. And you can just see that reflected in his vote totals. And also, Manny Ramirez, the next guy that we have to talk about, he just got eliminated on this ballot, only coming in with 38.8%. You see players get a jump in their last ballot. That's just typically the way that it is. Manny Ramirez, I believe it was no different. Let me just take a quick look. A slight bump. He had 34.3% of votes, and now he got 38.8%, so a very minimal bump. His first season, he had 23.8, then 22, then 22.8, then 28.2, then 28.2, then 28.9, 33.2, 32.5, 34.3. It's the same thing with all the guys who did steroids. This is just the way that it is. That's the way that the writers operate. Manny Ramirez never had a shot this ballot, and I think that he rightfully didn't get in. Next guy that we have to talk about that did have a big jump is going to be Bobby Abreu. He's kind of an interesting analytical pick because he wasn't appreciated at his time. He has almost a 400 on base percentage at 395. He has a 128 OPS plus, so 28% better than the league average player. He's a Gold Glove winner, Silver Slugger, but only a 2-time All-Star. And what I've heard a lot of people say is when you thought of a Hall of Famer when you were watching Bobby Abreu play, you weren't thinking of Bobby Abreu. People didn't really view him as a Hall of Famer at that time, and I think that showed up on the ballot. But he did have a big jump this year, jumping up to 30.8 after 19.5 last season. He has consistently been climbing. He started off with 5.5, then 8.7, then 8.6, then 15.4, then 14.8, then 19.5, and then obviously this season 30.8. He's gonna need to make major strides next year if he wants to have a chance. 30.8 this season. He's got to have like a Chase Utley jump. He's got to be sitting in like low 50s, high 40s if he wants to have a shot, considering that this was his 7th ballot. Like 8th ballot, if you're sitting, let's say like he jumps up to 45. 9th ballot, let's say he jumps up to 60. Then he could have a chance, but so, I mean, 2 15-point jumps, I just don't know if that's realistic for him. But we will see. We will see. I do hope that he gets into the Hall of Fame. He's on my ballot, but I don't know if he's going to. What do you get? An 11-point jump isn't going to cut it. He's going to need a bigger jump than that. Next guy that we need to talk about is Jimmy Rollins. Jimmy Rollins was a guy that I did not consider a Hall of Famer when I was going through my ballot because he has a 95 OPS plus. He was worse than league average. Defensively, he was great. Won MVP, won a World Series. He's got a bunch of WAR at 47.9. Which is great, but it's not enough to cut it. He has under 2,500 hits, which is, if you're just going off of hits, that's not enough. He has 231 home runs, which if you're just looking at home runs isn't enough. The rate stats aren't there at all. Just as a whole, I don't think he's going to have enough to get into the Hall of Fame, but he did have a jump this season. He had 18% last year. This season, he had 25.4. So not as big of a jump as Bobby Abreu, but this was only his 5th year on the ballot. So if he has continued steady improvements, he could be a guy that we're talking about in the Hall of Fame maybe in like 4 years. I don't think that's completely unrealistic, but I just wouldn't say bet on it, right? Next guy that we have to talk about is our first ballot guy, our debut, Cole Hamels. He had a fantastic debut in terms of his Hall of Fame ballot. I don't think anyone thought that he was going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he had 23.8% of the vote, which I think is really, really good as a starting point. I mean, if we look at Felix Hernandez, who has lower WAR than him, but he has a much higher peak, Felix started off at 20.6, so if Cole is already starting off with the lead at 25%, I mean, I think that is or 23.8, my apologies. I think that that's a fantastic start for him. I think if he can grow that next season to maybe similar to Felix, I don't know if he'll have as big of a jump up to 46.1, but if he could sit somewhere in like that mid 40s, I think that he would be on a good pace to make it into the Hall of Fame. My only thing is I don't know if he is a Hall of Famer. I mean, 4-time All-Star, World Series MVP, NLCS MVP, Cy Young vote getter 4 times. He didn't have the peak of a lot of guys, but he did have pretty remarkable just consistency, right? But I mean, when you're looking at his peak, in his best times, he was averaging 5.4 WAR season, which is really good. It's really phenomenal. He was averaging over 200 strikeouts a season during that time. On a career, he has a 206 strikeouts per 162. So overall, a very complete player. Is he a Hall of Famer? This is somebody that I can talk about because I did watch him play a lot more. He never struck me as a Hall of Famer. So for that reason, I'm going to say no. But it could be because he was overshadowed by just the guys that we know are going to be a Hall of Famers, like a Justin Verlander, like a Max Scherzer. But as a whole, I think a really, really strong debut. And maybe within 4 to 5 years, if he could jump up to, if he could get up to like 65%, 70% by the time his 5th year rolls around, I think we'll be talking to him in about Cooperstown very soon. But I don't think it's the case right now. I think it's too early to tell anything. Next guy is his 2nd year on the ballot is going to be Dustin Pedroia. My apologies. he had a nice little bump. He got up to 20% this season, which is an improvement from his 11.9. He had a 20.7% this season. This is his second year on the ballot, so about a 9% jump. He's another guy. I'd like to get him to the Hall of Fame, but I don't think he's going to be. He just career robbed by injuries, quite frankly. Another guy that just after the age of 30, he just fell off. He had 2016. He was really good in 2016. But he needed a couple more seasons. He needed a couple more All-Star appearances. 4 isn't going to cut it. 4 Gold Gloves is awesome. Silver Slugger. Wilson, overall Defensive Player of the Year, awesome. 2-time World Series winner. MVP, Rookie of the Year, those are all fantastic. But when you're looking at his entire career, I just don't think that he has the cumulative numbers to back it up. And his rate stats aren't like so out of this world with a 113 OPS plus that I think that you can justify him getting much Hall of Fame love. But yeah, like he's a guy that is a Hall of Fame talent. Like if he had honestly just like 2 more seasons of like 4 WAR, you get him up to 60 WAR, you get to 2,000 hits, it would be a different story. But I can't say that he's in the Hall of Fame, unfortunately. I hope that he gets in, I really do, but I just don't think that he will. And I just don't think that going up to 20.7% in his second ballot is going to be enough. Next guy that we have to talk about, though, is Mark Burley. With his 6th year on the ballot, he squared off at an even 20%. Same career WAR as Cole Hamels. I don't think his peak was quite as good, but again, just like remarkable consistency. And also he has a bunch of Gold Gloves, which I get Gold Gloves for pitchers don't really matter, but good for him. Another big-time jump for him. He also had around a 9% jump. He was sitting at 11.4% last year. He has just been up and down. 11%, 5.8, 10.8, 8.3, 11.4, jumping up to 20%. So it's a good increase for him, but with his 6th season on the ballot, I just don't see it happening. I could see him being a Veterans Committee guy, though, for sure. He really strikes me as that type of guy. So we'll see if he can get there, but I don't think he's going to get in via writer's ballot. Next guy that we have to talk about, I guess, is Omar Vizquel. He's not getting in. This was his 9th season on the ballot. He had 18.4. He had a really good stretch going before all of his terrible allegations came out against him, and he just fell off the face of the ballot, basically. His high point was 52.6 on his 3rd ballot. That is well on the trajectory to get in, and now he's dropped to 18.4, and that's remarkably a jump up from last year where he was at 17.8. He's not getting in. If you're looking at the stats, you could argue, but with everything else, there's no way that he's getting in, thankfully. Next guy is David Wright. Again, similar to Dustin Pedroia, but just not as much so. Hall of Fame talent, just cut short, and unfortunately it won't be a Hall of Fame career in my opinion. He falls short of 50 WAR. He falls well short of 2,000 hits. He falls short of 250 home runs. But like the rate stats are great. The rate stats are incredible, but again, just after the age of 30, if he could have strung together a couple more seasons, we would be talking about him in Cooperstown very shortly. But that's just not the case, unfortunately. He did have a jump up, though, along with everyone else. He was at 8.1 last season. He's now sitting at 14.8 in his 3rd ballot. It's not going to be enough. He's not going to get in via writer's committee. I'm calling it right now. The next guy is going to be Francisco Rodriguez, a.k.a. K-Rod. I know him for his time with the Milwaukee Brewers. He did not have a big jump at all. The relievers are always a tricky one. Did he even jump? Yeah, he did jump just barely. He was sitting at 10.2 last season. Now he's sitting at 11.8. He also has stuff going on outside of baseball, but in his 4th season on the ballot, yeah, I think you can wrap it up, K-Rod. I don't think you're getting in, especially on the writer's ballot. You look at a guy like Billy Wagner, and I mean, in terms of the actual pitching quality, are they that similar? No. Billy Wagner was just like objectively better in every way, shape, and form, especially via rate stats. And also, I believe that he has more career saves. No, he doesn't. K-Rod actually has slightly more career saves. But like pure rate stats, Billy Wagner is just like far and away the better reliever. And Billy Wagner, at the time of his 4th ballot, what was he looking at? Because I mean, I know that he made a late push. I mean, his 4th ballot, he was sitting at 16.7, and then after that, he really started to climb to finally get in. So, I mean, I guess there's still hope for K-Rod, but I mean, he is a little bit behind Billy Wagner's pace. And like I said, Billy Wagner was just better. And I don't know how many people would be going to fight for K-Rod. Next guy is going to be Torrey Hunter. On his sixth ballot, he's at 8.7%. He's just like stuck around the entire time, which I think is great. I mean, statistics-wise, I don't think he has enough to get in. A 110 OPS plus isn't enough. Under 2,500 career hits. He does have a lot of home runs, though, at 353 as a primary center fielder. That's pretty remarkable. And a 9-time Gold Glover, 5-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger. So the accolades, I think you could argue, are there, but like a career 50.6 WAR isn't going to get it done. And also, he's barely had a jump. In fact, he's fallen off from his high point. He barely stuck around last year with 5.1, and he's up to 8.7 now. But I mean, like, you look at these totals, 9.5, 5.3, 6.9, 7.3, 5.2, and now to 8.7. He's just going to kind of middle around in this area. He's not going to get into the Hall of Fame, especially on the writer's ballot. And then we got all the guys who got booted on the first ballot. Ryan Braun, he honestly put up decent votes, 15 votes, which is 3.5 total. We knew that he was going to be off, though. I mean, his career as a whole is not Hall of Fame worthy, and then with the PEDs all mixed in there, no shot. Edwin Encarnacion at 1.4%. He's not going to make it. We knew that. Sin-Soo Choo, we knew wasn't going to get at 0.7. Matt Kemp, 0.5. Hunter Pence, 0.5. Rick Porcello, 0.5. Alex Gordon, 0.2. Nick Markakis, 0.2. 0.2 is just 1 vote, by the way. Gio Gonzalez, 0 votes. Howie Kendrick, 0 votes. And Daniel Murphy, 0 votes. So as a whole, this was a really fun Hall of Fame season. It wasn't the strongest class in the world, but having not a strong class can lead to a big jump for those guys that were already on the ballot, like a Carlos Beltrán and Andruw Jones, and quite frankly, everyone on the ballot. As we look forward to next year, we have a weak ballot. Buster Posey is going to be the headliner. There's debates on if he's going to get in, though. Right away, I should say. I think that he is going to get in, but he only has 45 career WAR, but people know him as one of the best catchers of all time. But we'll see what happens. He retired very early. John Lester is going to be another interesting conversation. That's going to be a conversation of how much does playoff matter, because he was very, very good in the playoffs. And also how much are things going to matter in terms of, like, he's going to be like one of the last pitchers that hit 200 wins, that isn't one of like the bona fide superstars that we're going to be talking about. So he's going to be an interesting case, but after that, it's a very, very weak class. I mean, Brett Gardner is not going to get in. Ryan Zimmerman's not going to get in. Kyle Seager isn't going to get in. And then after that, you're like Irvin Santana, Asdrubal Cabrera, Todd Frazier, Josh Reddick's potential, Jake Arrieta. So all those guys, I mean, it's a potential that they could be on the ballot, but all of it's remarkably weak. So I would expect big jumps from Chase Utley next season. King Felix, expect a big jump. Andy Pettitte could get a big jump. Bobby Abreu, I'd like to see a big jump. The guys that we think are going to stay stagnant, though, is going to be an Alex Rodriguez and Omar Vizquel. And Omar Vizquel, that's going to be his 10th year on the ballot, so he will be gone. But that is all I got for you. I love talking about the Hall of Fame, so make sure to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below, and like and subscribe, do all those things. If you think that Carlos Beltrán shouldn't have gotten in because of the Astros scandal, make sure to leave it down below. I would love to discuss it more with you. If you think that Ryan Braun should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer, let's talk about it down below. So thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'm out. Peace.